Next, we're going to hear from Mexican artist Minerva, who's going to speak about in relationship to the work that you all likely saw when you came into the gallery today, which is the amazing mural at the front of the building. Minerva's work critically investigates the science of corporal globalization, recreating its appropriated publicity and endowing it with newly revealed historical truth of its dispossessions. State-sponsored campaigns of violence and ecocide crimes against Mexico's subsistence level, small-scale agricultural sector. She does many other things, and we'll hear a little bit more about it now.
Hello. Well, I would like to thank all the people working for Nottingham Contemporary. Thank you very much for all your patience and, sorry, it's it has life. I'll give examples of previous works, and I'll very much also talk about the research I've done for those projects, and I'm glad we ended up talking about research, because I think that even though my work tends to end up in many different visual solutions, research is the key for well, producing it. So first, this project is an early one. It's called Better Life Corporation, and it very much started as a series of interventions in Mexico City public space. What I was doing was basically responding to either economical situations or institutions or just in general the system in the city by giving free products and services. And well, I started calling them products and services just to be able to give a structure to the project, but it was very much just a loose series of actions on the street. So some of the products were like free subway tickets, everything for free, self-stamped envelope, student ID card. Anyone can request or get these kind of things. So it was a mix between orders and services that I was developing. Also campaigns. Like the first time the project entered a museum, I decided to also use the banner to announce the exhibitions to have this campaign that is around homelessness in Mexico City. And it says, if you have house, you count, for the National Institute of Statistics. The homeless don't, because, well, basically they are not counted as part of the population. That's, well, a little bit strange order of slides, sorry. Also, the first time I presented the project inside a museum space, I borrowed the furniture from the Spanish bank, Banco Bilbao Vizcaya, and I also borrowed this mascot from the bank because I thought it was perfect. It's dressed as Robin Hood, and it's a pig, symbol of greed, accumulation, and I didn't do anything to the pig. I just show it inside the museum space because it was just perfect with the show. Then this is the office space that I used to have also in relation to the project, because, well, the strategy included the website, then the office space, and well, me going around supermarkets, changing the barcode of some fruit and vegetables to make all that cheaper. And it also became a product you could order or print from the website. As part of the project also, the Melate campaign well, became probably the first logo or emblem I modify, because well, you'll see in other works how I've been using a lot of the corporate image to refer to social issues. So in this case, the alteration refers to the people that live in poverty in Mexico. And well, all the national lottery is meant to be for public assistance, but you never see the results on the streets. That's the image of the exhibition at the Tamayo Museum. And well, there as you see, there's the friend, the pig, and the whole series of products and services were active. Well, that means that the museum was giving the student ID cards and giving away all the products, giving away posters of the campaign. Someone from the museum, we used to sit there and take the photographs and do the whole process of the student ID card. At that time, I wanted that the museum change its policy and that it became free entrance, but that couldn't happen because well, bureaucracy. So the student ID cards made possible that all the people entering that time and paying for the entrance would have the student ID and then not paying again, because if you're a student, it's free entrance. As part of Better Life Corporation, I also had the interest to learn about radio. So I learned how to set up a FM radio station, and my plan was to open a free public pirate radio station, but at the end it needed a collective behind it, very much because of the production of the programs. So that part of the project at the end connected more to other states in Mexico, like Oaxaca, that is in the south of the country, and it connected in the way of workshops teaching indigenous communities how to set up their own stations. This is the radio team. That's the radio students in Chanica, a very distant community. Even if you are in the state of Oaxaca, it would take you 12 hours by bus to reach this community. And they don't have access to TV or radio. I mean, the orography of Mexico is also so difficult that you end up traveling for hours in the same state. And yeah, they don't have any coverage of the usual commercial radio stations. So in fact, they became pioneers of communications in that area. Well, this is another example of how I try to generate what I call cultural experiments, because I think ecology, it's very much not only the environmental issues, but the social issues and the relations. Well, here you can see that it's musicians, but all of them are playing different instruments and, in fact, different type of music. And what happened is that in Spain, they asked me to develop a public art project. And I was around the neighborhood of Lavapiés, that is very multicultural, and well, in fact, it was going under a process of gentrification. And well, there I decided that probably the best was to give a concert to the neighborhood, because I noticed that the musicians, the buskers of the area were going to touristic places to play for tips. So I wanted to bring them back to the neighborhood, and I distributed flyers, and they had to play what they usually play. That means rock, samba. There were some experimental artists with one new instrument, solo players, classic, all kinds at the same time. I thought it was going to be just total noise for half an hour, but no, they found rhythm, a common rhythm and harmony. And for me, that's a metaphor also to society. I mean, they didn't need a director or any rehearsal. They just had this common language through music. That's the example I was talking about. And usually when I alter images or logos from corporations, it's not only the visual modification, but also a campaign. I mean, I try to distribute and scatter this image or graphic and information all around in any way. Could be from a tiny fruit sticker to a mural painting, like in this case. We have a huge chocolate bar at the entrance. Then this is another example of how I've been playing with mixing references to the early way Spanish view America and its natural resources, because it was also well, not only exploitation, but also a totally distorted vision. No, everything was a monster and alien. That's an example of well, studying a very specific context. That was Australia, and well, there I did an investigation on what was happening with the kangaroo skin industry, which basically is not needed. And it was very much a political tool to make Aboriginals vote for the politicians that kept hunting as an economic activity instead of giving all the opportunities to the Aboriginals. They decided that those kind of activities were for them. That's a mural in Brazil that also very much depicts the country. It makes references to Monsanto, to also companies that are working with the transgenic soy, cellulose. And that's Ronald. That's an action in front of the McDonald's. He basically was very honest about his activities and talk about syndicates, about the kind of meat they use for the food, and he was just too honest. He wasn't demonstrating or doing any kind of protest. He was inviting people to go inside the restaurant, but asking them for their money and giving this information, owning the place. In Norway, when it happened in Norway, the performer got arrested. That was great because it became, news. It's the national TV in Norway, and then it spread around the American websites. That's an example of how my work has been adopted by other people to use it as part of demonstrations. That series of works relates to Nestlé, which is a major monopoly in terms of resources like water, chocolate, cacao. And talking about cacao, The mural here relates to the origin, the Mayan origin of cacao, because that's the region where it comes from, and also the culture around drinking it and eating it. It also relates to the oil industry, and that connects to other works in the show, because, well, very much in Mexico, the area that is used to grow cacao, now it's used also for the oil industry. So what happens is that most of the people working for cultivating cacao now work for the oil industry. That's the quote you can read also as part of the chocolate bar. And that's another reference to how I work with logos and the references to the oil industry. That's Mexico City. Tar was also used in pre-Hispanic times by the Mayas, covering objects, sculptures, or with many different uses. So the installation here refers to that, but also to the Mexican oil industry and one of the accidents in that area. So, well, what I want to stress is that when I work with ecology is a way to bring social issues and the natural crisis that we are facing together. No, it's always both of these things that appear every time I do research on a certain social condition. There is a corporation behind. Thank you.